In our first story, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta is expected to present the mid-year budget review this afternoon in Parliament. Coronavirus's third wave and looming university lecturer strike will form the backdrop for this review. An earlier statement from the Finance Ministry said Mr. Ofori-Atta will today tell Ghanaians if we will be securing COVID-19 vaccines and how we intend raising money domestically to tackle the key issues facing the nation. Mr. Ofori-Atta goes to Parliament in accordance with Section 28 of the Public Financial Management Act 2016, Act 921, which enjoins him to present the review to Parliament not later than the 31st of July each financial year. We learned that this budget review will focus on funds to support young persons, the efforts that government is making to tackle unemployment and raise revenue. That's what we are learning from those who drafted the mid-year review. Also, there will be no supplementary budget. What it means is that there will be no new taxes, no new measures to raise money outside of the tax lines that we already have as a country. And so we should be expecting something along these lines in just a few minutes when the Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta goes to Parliament to address the nation. Now, we will take you live to Parliament for some expectations, as I said earlier, when we have them. But in the meantime, the Food and Drugs Authority has approved 2 more vaccines for use in Ghana. They include Moderna and Pfizer-BioNTech. This definitely comes as good news as the country continues in its frantic search for vaccines to enable it to inoculate its nationals. President Akufo-Addo on Sunday said about 20 million people will be vaccinated by close of this year. A good number of the populace are yet to be vaccinated. Head of Vaccines and Biological Products at the FDA, Dr. Edwin Nkansa, tells us more about the new additions.
We used emergency use authorization to approve these vaccines. These are procedures and guidelines that will provide applicants, people who come in intending to make available these vaccines to the Ghanaian populace. They provide them with a minimum requirement that will provide FDA the guidance as to evaluate it on the basis of the risk and benefit of the product. So these are minimum requirements that will, the FDA will based on to grant authorization to such product. The FDA has already granted emergency use authorization to Sputnik V, Covishield from Serum Institute, India, and then also from Janssen's COVID-19 vaccine. So these are the two gives us a plethora of vaccines to choose from by the Ministry of Health, Ghana Health Service, so that you have these products available to Ghanaians for vaccination. We have 5 vaccines authorized for use in the campaign. No private individual will be able to import these vaccines and then apply them. They will have to go through the whatever importation or whatever authorization granted a private individual. There should be an agreement where when the product comes into the country, it goes straight to the stores of the expanded program on immunization, which is the government.
Now, the Ghana Health Service is warning that there is a third wave, or a huge risk of a severe third wave, worse than the second wave if disregard for the COVID protocols continues. Speaking at a news briefing in Accra Wednesday, Director General of the service, Dr. Patrick Kumar-Boaji, made it clear that Ghana is currently going through a third wave of the virus outbreak.
That we are experiencing a third wave, a major spike that can be described as a third wave. There's a high risk that the severe third wave may have a higher, much more severe wave compared to the second if nothing is done. And this is happening because we are also still not adhering to the protocols, and we would have expected a lot more people adhering to the protocol, but we've still not seen enough. We're going to start the mask surveys to see how people respond and how it relates to the decline or otherwise of the numbers. We still have to look for more isolation centers if the surges continue. We are also non-adherence to isolation by affected persons undergoing home treatment, and that's why we are enforcing more facility isolation. And one of the key challenges we are having is the fact that our vaccination coverage is still low. You said the last one we talked about the third wave and that we're being evasive. There's a very, very classical definition for a wave. Until you get there, you don't say it. In a wave, you see a stepwise increase in numbers. When you have an increase that is stagnating, that is not a wave yet. And so it was not being evasive. We're just telling you what it is. Now we can see we are seeing an increase, so we can now move in. So we don't going to jump in. People were saying we are there. Forecasting is different from saying this is where we are.
Now, he has been responding to persons who claim they tested negative before traveling to Ghana, but tested positive at the Kotoka International Airport. He says the testing system at the airport is very effective.
We are very confident in our system, and when you start seeing cases rise around the countries in the world, you see the number appearing at the airport also going up. That shows that the machine is quite sensitive. The fact that you are negative 3 days ago, or even 2 hours ago, doesn't mean that you will not be positive in the next 2 hours. It's a multiplication. Just moving from negative to positive is just a question of a few minutes, depending on how much the titer is increasing. So nobody can say, and it's also wrong to compare 2 different samples, and especially even when they are taking different dates, and say when I arrived in the night, they say I'm positive. When I did one the following morning, I'm negative. You have to understand the way the virus is behaving. It's multiplication. So that's what we are dealing with. So I think we just want to say that these things are inaccurate, and it's a way to save all of us. And other countries have even more stricter protocols than we have.
Now, Dr. Patrick Kumar-Boaje also says a team has been dispatched to a senior high school in the OT region after an outbreak of the virus there 3 days ago.
And we shared the update. The schools remain practically the same. A few outbreaks have been recorded cumulatively of 2,647 since school reopened, with 93% recovery. Currently, there are about 166 active cases going on. We have about 38 in OT, which is just coming since the last 3 days. And that school, we're still monitoring to see how we can contain the school. A team has been dispatched to the school to assist the district and the region contain the outbreak immediately. Greater Accra has 15, Shanti has 93 active cases in schools, Eastern 12, Bono 7, Bono East 7, and Bono 1.
11 Joy News today. Let's go back to our earlier story where Ken Ofori-Atta is expected to go to Parliament to present the mid-year budget review today. Joseph Opoku-Gakpo has joined us from the House. He's live on the telephone. Joseph, what are some of the expectations of Ken Ofori-Atta from the floor?
Very mixed expectations. The MPs on the NDC side, for example, don't expect anything new. Ricky Tegan, who is the MP for Cape Coast South, for example, makes the point that there are key issues, including concerns about the debt situation that have to be dealt with if the nation would actually get back on track. And they are expecting that he will go ahead and deal with that. A number of dignitaries are present here in the House as well. John Boydo, who is the NPP's General Secretary, is present. He's been making the point that this media review will be aimed at kicking start the economy in order to ensure that adequate jobs are provided for the youth of the country going forward. I've also spotted Freddie Blay, who is the chairman of the party, here even as the conversations begin. in order to allow for the finance minister to get in. So we are waiting that the finance minister will be joining us anytime soon in order to allow for the presentation of the budget to then kick off.
Now, Joseph, the finance minister was scheduled to speak at midday, from what we understand. Is there any indication as to why there's been a delay?
The House itself began its sitting just about 3 minutes ago, with the prayers being said in order to allow for the necessary processes to then kickstart. Essentially, the sitting itself had delayed a bit. The Speaker of Parliament, that's Alban Bappin, is not present in the House as we speak. His first deputy, George Sewusu, is presiding over sitting. And there's been questions from MPs on the minority side about why they've not been informed of the Speaker's absence. So that's something they are dealing with on the floor as we speak, after which we are expecting that the processes will then unfold to allow for questioning that will be directed at the Minister for Youth and Sports and a number of other ministers before the Finance Minister will do his presentation. Let's get a quick comment from the MP for Pole, Suleiman Yusuf. He's also Deputy Ranking Member on Parliament's Trade and Industry Committee. Honorable, thanks very much for joining us. What are your expectations, even as we await the arrival of the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, to present the media budget?
So let me say good morning to our cherished viewers, and to thank you for this opportunity. Today, very important day for me as a person. Today is my birthday, and so I want to wish all Ghanaians and dedicate this birthday to the vulnerable in society in particular. We are supposed to review the 2021 budget today. And the question is, what are my expectations? My expectations are not different from the expectations of Ghanaians, okay? All the promises that we made from the beginning of this administration, in my opinion, hasn't come to fruition. What is it? The economy, we're told that this economy was going to be transformed from borrowing to production. Is that the case? Is that what we are seeing today? We're told that they were going to create jobs, sustainable jobs. Go out there and find out from the teeming youth whether or not they've been able to create jobs. We were told that roads will be tied everywhere, that our roads will be worked on. In fact, a particular year was even dedicated for as a year of roads. Go out there and find out. In terms of sanitation, our towns, our villages are all choked with debts, okay? And these are some of the problems that we are facing today. We are moving into the rainy season. My expectation is that the minister, working with the Minister of, Works and Housing, will desalts our gutters, especially in Accra, so that this rainy season, this year in particular, we don't encounter the kind of floods that we encounter annually. It is something that I want to hear from him. I do not expect any much changes, in this budget. Like the name suggests, it's a review, and they're just going to look at where they are not going well and where they are going well to see how they can forge ahead. But generally, you agree with me that the expectations of Ghanaians haven't been met since His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo and our own brother, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, took over the reins of this administration. And so for me, is the usual rhetorics. Okay? These are some of the things that we expect and nothing else.
Many thanks for joining us. That's the MP for Bole, Yusuf Suleimana, who is also Deputy Ranking Member on Parliament's Trade and Industry Committee. So a lot of the MPs are getting in because then the proceedings have begun. We're expecting that any moment from now, the House will deal with the other businesses and then they will get on to the Finance Minister himself in terms of his presentation to the House as far as the media budget review is concerned. Daniel.
Thank you very much, Joseph Opoku-Gakpo, for bringing us those comments from Parliament. Let's go back to our earlier story where the FDA has given approval for the use of 2 vaccines in the country, bringing the total number of vaccine brands we use in Ghana to 5. The new approval has been given to Pfizer and Moderna. And let's take a quick word from Health Fellow at Center for Democratic Development, CDD Ghana, and a pharmacist, Kwame Esiedu-Sapon. Thank you very much for joining us, Kwame. First of all, is it good news that we have approved Pfizer and Moderna?
Yes, thanks, Daniel, and good afternoon to your listeners. Yes, it's very good news. The reason being that the more vaccine options you have, the better it is to improve your supply chain. And if your supply chain improves, it then means that you are not constrained when a particular vaccine runs out, or when there are adverse effects, or when there's vaccine geopolitics going on. So from that standpoint, it's very good news.
Okay, let's quickly go to the specific technologies that we would use. For instance, the cold chain technology that is needed. Are you confident that we can still roll out these vaccines quickly and across the country with the specifics that are required of these?
Yes, I mean, if you listen to the president's address, he did acknowledge the fact that they had improved cold chain facilities at the regional level in all 16 regions of Ghana. So that is a good thing. The other thing is the latest data on Pfizer and Moderna indicates that once you are about to use, they don't actually need to be stored at ultra cold temperatures of -70 and -20 respectively, but they can be stored at 2 to 8 degrees for up to 1 month. That means that considering that we have a low vaccine coverage, if we get those vaccines come in and we can get them to the regions on time in ultra cold chain, we stand a good chance of rolling them out in 4 weeks while using room temperature. So that is an advantage if you look at it from that point of view.
That's actually quite very refreshing, I must say. But the next point then would be that when it comes to procurement and still the challenges that the country is facing, are you confident that we can indeed get these vaccines in as soon as possible?
Truth of the matter is, if you look, the United States has promised globally 500 million doses of vaccines, most of which would be Johnson & Johnson and Pfizer. And currently, looking at the supply chain data, Moderna doesn't feature in that promise, and it doesn't feature in any of the COVAX promises. But with that in mind, yes, we would get, because if the US are going to be providing it, then it's likely that it would go to COVAX. It might, the African vaccine platform might get some, Johnson & Johnson as well, and it might trickle into Ghana. So I have confidence in that sense. But from a bilateral standpoint, unfortunately, when it comes to bilateral agreements, the supply chain is still constrained.
Is there anything we can do to change that?
At this point, not until 2022. I mean, if you look at it critically, as I speak now, 75% of all vaccines, and now today we are 3.1 billion doses of vaccines administered across the globe. 75% have been administered in only 10 countries. And those 10 countries still have supplies that have been bought and promised. So you can understand that unless they abrogate their contracts with these vaccine manufacturers, the supply chain is not going to change anytime soon until 2022.
Since we have new variants of the vaccine coming in, new brands of the vaccine coming in, what do you say to those who still have some hesitation because they took one shot of the vaccine, which was a different brand, AstraZeneca, and now they may have to take a Moderna or Pfizer?
Well, I don't know what the FDA's view. I need to check the FDA's view on vaccine mixing. There's significant data come out from a number of pilots by Public Health England, by the German regulator and all that, and European Medicines Agency. I'm quite sure you'd be aware that Angela Merkel, for example's first dose was AstraZeneca, her second dose was Moderna. So it is being done. And I'm also aware that to outwit the strains, a number of European countries and even the UK are considering that when it comes to booster shots, they are going to chop and change. What does that mean? So, for example, if you had 2 doses of Pfizer as your original, you're going to have AstraZeneca so that you increase the spectrum. If you had 2 doses of AstraZeneca, you're going to have Pfizer. The other thing you have to bear in mind is that these vaccines are manufactured relatively quickly. Once a strain comes, they are able to get the part of the spike protein from the new variant, and they can use that to engineer these vaccines very, very quickly. That has been done for generations when it comes to flu vaccinations. The same thing is going to happen with COVID. So for me, the strains themselves are not a problem if the vaccine coverage is high, because that's the thing that has happened with the flu. And every year, a different strain comes, a different variant comes, the vaccines are re-engineered, and they are still effective. So if we can get enough vaccines just to get to herd immunity,
right,
re-emergence of strains would go down, but more importantly, because of the vaccine technology that has been used these times, they can be engineered so quickly and new vaccine crops and stocks can come on the market and we can be safer.
So if someone has the opportunity, from what you talk about re-engineering of vaccine strains, if someone has the opportunity to take a Pfizer, even though they've taken 2 shots of AstraZeneca, would you advise that person to take that opportunity?
Well, if they've taken 2 shots of AstraZeneca at this point in time, because the data suggests that even after 1 dose, up to 45 weeks, the antibodies from these vaccines are detectable, because there's a study that's come out of Public Health England with over 70,000 patients, and they all, after 45 weeks, they were detecting the antibodies at what do you call it, protection levels, albeit the titers were dropping. I would struggle to see why, if you had 1 dose, 2 doses in this year, you'd want to have a third, because that in itself would make it difficult for the vaccine supply chain to ease up, because then one person is having 3 doses rather than 2 doses, which would then mean that you're depriving others. So much as nothing would happen to you, no harm would come to you. From a strategic and public health point of view, I'd say it's not a wise decision.
Right. Kwame Sapon-Sedu, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon on Joy News Today. Now let's move to the Joy Clean Ghana campaign, and AMA officials are demolishing pan latrines at Old Fadama. The pan latrines were outlawed as far back as 2010, but in 2021, some of them are still operating in the city. Let's take you live to Old Fadama, where my colleague Manuel Kranting is standing by to bring us updates. Manuel, what's the latest? Earlier, you went to the Goddess Love pan latrine. Where are you now?
The entire exercise has been centered around the Goddess Love latrine. Essentially, the Association of Public Toilet Operators in the area have been mobilizing their members and then, as it were, besieging the officers of the AMA. The officers are giving them up to tomorrow to sign an undertaking with the Assembly, an undertaking which will precede some sort of assistance from the Assembly in upgrading their facilities to standard facilities. So today, the Goddess Love public toilet facility itself has been torn down with a stern warning to all others that are operating under similar conditions. And so as we move away from this particular facility, the call is for all of the others to sign an undertaking and submit themselves to the processes of the Accra Metropolitan Assembly, so that they are put under the Gamma Sanitation Project. Now, the Gamma Sanitation Project is an initiative being rolled out by the Assembly to assist households and indeed institutions which do not have dedicated toilet facilities to gain them. And so that's going to be rolled out now for a lot of the others who were not on it to now be put on it. And so, Daniel, much about the brief from today's exercise is what I've given to you.
Right. Now, I understand that today's focus was on pan latrines, but you were at Old Fadama, and I saw that behind the team there was a lagoon that was choked with filth. Does the Assembly have any plans to do something about the sanitation in the general area?
So, indeed, we've been told by the Works and Housing Minister, the Honorable Subuate, that there's a project that is being undertaken in collaboration with the World Bank to dredge these basins within the Greater Accra area. And so that particular lagoon that you saw in your shot is one that has been earmarked for that particular project, of course, with support from the Assembly. And that was made clear today as we, toured the area. It's instructive to note also that one gentleman who was even arrested for burning in the open the electronic waste materials which were emitting thick fumes into the atmosphere. And so he is going to be prosecuted, as we've been told, by the Assembly. And so generally the area have now come under the radar of the Assembly, and this is just the very first exercise to be, followed by several others. Daniel.
Manuel Kranting, thank you very much for bringing us those updates from Old Fadama. You're live on Joy News today with me, Daniel Daze. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Now, Energy Minister Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh says government has taken a firm decision not to enter into any take-or-pay agreement in the power sector. Describing the arrangement mostly between the Electricity Company of Ghana and independent power producers as inimical to the economy of the country, Dr. Prempeh indicated any power contract in the future will be devoid of such clauses to guarantee value for money. At the swearing-in of the newly constituted governing board of the ECG, the minister urged them to turn the economic fortunes of the power distributor around. Elton Brobe was there and he joins us live. Elton, who are those who will be on the board of the ECG?
It's said by Kelly Gejepo, who was actually the board chair of the last board of the ECG. So he is continuing as board chair of the facility. It also includes the current chief executive of the Electricity Company of Ghana. People drawn from academia, the finance, legal, and then the financial sector. You know, there are 9-member board of the ECG, and their main task is to supervise the operations of management, ensure that ECG, according to the energy minister, is moved from its current situation where it is unable to make profit to one that is able to make profit. But to do so, he blamed the current woes of ECG on two major issues, attitude and management, according to him, because successive governments and the current government, they've always been there for ECG. ECG have always gone to government for money, and government has always made those finances available to ECG. They've not been proactive in terms of working to ensure that the ECG is financially sound. And the situation where technocrats at the ECG will draft agreements between ECG and independent power producers under a take-or-pay arrangement is not something that government want to encourage. According to President Kufuor, has given clear directives to the ECG to ensure that in the event that they have to sign agreement with any independent power producer, that agreement must not contain that clause. In the government is only able to sign on to such agreement when it is a take or pay, but not take or pay.
Right.
That is the new agenda going forward.
Elton, did the board of the ECG respond, the newly sworn-in board?
Well, first of all, the energy minister gave them a document, which, according to Dr. Matthew Opoku from Prempeh, will be the new operational guidelines for the ECG. And the management and the board has 2 weeks to give their input, after which they will give it to cabinet to look at it. Now, according to Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh, ECG operational cost, which results in 30% fact that they sell power, they are unable to collect 30% of it. It's not something that they want to encourage. Now, Kalijajepo, who says that he's been on the management to ensure that things are turned around, says that they will use the PDS example. According to him, when PDS took over the management of ECG, they brought only 2 personnel. But because it was a private-led management, attitudes and everything changed. Now, it looks like they are back to where they were before PDS came on board. And for now, attitudinal change, most importantly, a new management style is what they are going to adopt to drive ECG forward.
Thank you very much, Elton Brobe, for bringing us those updates. You're live on Joy News today with me, Daniel Daze, still standing by for Ken Oforiatta to begin that speech in Parliament. Now, though, it's time to take some business news with Daryl Kwao.
Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to Business. My name is Daryl Kwao. The Ghana Hotels Association has reiterated the need for a consolidation of the regulation of hotels and hoteliers in the country. Leadership observes that regulatory bodies are uncoordinated, with some of their activities duplicated. President of the association, Dr. Edward Akanyamike Jr. says it is about time a one-stop payment regime is made for them. He spoke to Prince Appiah at the National Executive Council meeting held in Kumasi.
Leadership of the Ghana Hotels Association from across the country met in Kumasi to discuss challenges the industry is facing. Two important things were discussed as a way forward: a call for mandatory membership and compulsory training for hoteliers as a move to enhance standards of operations. Gilbert Derry is secretary of the Upper East branch of the association.
Our main regulatory body, the Ghana Tourism Authority, hasn't made sure that every hotel belongs to an association. We do not insist they must belong to the Ghana Hotels Association, but we insist they must belong to an association. Because if they do, then it's better for them to manage them properly and ensure that we deliver the best of service based on a common standard. Because if you look, the Bar Association is there, the Ghana Medical Association is there, you have the Ghana Union of Traders, all of them are associations, and it is mandatory to belong to one. So that should be the first step that should be taken.
The hotel industry, according to national leadership, is engulfed with so much taxes which affects their businesses.
It's a very challenging industry with multiplicity of taxes. We don't have much support from the government.
Because of COVID, the funerals are no more vibrant. You can agree with me that the hotels will be affected. So it means we are losing revenue. But at the same time, the statutory organizations think that we are in business, so you have to pay tax.
One of our key challenges, mostly we talk about, is the services are not up to standard, they are not up to standard. How will they be up to standard when those who are being trained do not get the practical sessions with us?
Activities of the many regulatory bodies are also a worry to members. President of the association, Dr. Akanyamike, says a one-stop payment regime can address the situation.
That we have a lot of regulators, starting from our primary regulator, which is the Ghana Tourism Authority. Then you come to the ancillary ones, which is the Environmental Protection Agency, the Fire Service, the Food and Drugs Authority. You go on and on and on. Now, we've been saying over the years that is it not possible to synchronize the regulation and probably develop a one-stop shop where, say, if you are paying, say, 500 Ghana cedis for all those activities, it is received and then government does the distribution. But we have a situation where this one comes for payment, that one comes for, and then even in the operation, in the enforcement, there's duplication.
To improve standards, Dr. Nyamike says plans are advanced to ensure compulsory training for members.
Our point is that we should get to a point where the Tourism Authority and the Ministry will be able to approve or renew licenses because your staff have gone through a certain training. Because we want a standardized tourism industry. More so when we are pushing for domestic tourism, and of course, if coverage should go, then we also look at international tourism. There should be some standard. We always complain about this hotel didn't give us this good services or these quality services. But what are we putting?
Prince Appiah reporting.
In other news, MTN Ghana, the country's largest mobile operator, has launched the MTN Ghana Ayuba Hackathon to allow for startups and app developers to build fintech solutions to solve many of the country's technology problems. Chief Marketing Officer of MTN Ghana, Noel Kojo Gansen, says the newly launched MTN Ghana Ayuba Hackathon seeks to provide app developers and startups the opportunity to be creative and launch their services through micro apps.
The developer community together for them to build very user-friendly and micro apps for us to adopt into our super app, which we call Ayuba, for the usage of our customer base. As we set out to have an Ayuba as a super app, on the continent. One of the main key things we've been thinking about is how best do we ensure that we have the right content that is going to drive stickiness onto the platform, drive customers to adopt it, and primarily also ensure that there are solutions that are being resolved by the app in general. And as we are as a business and through our partnership intentions, we know we cannot do this by ourselves. So we plunged into having and bringing the developer community together to be able to help us and also grow their sector as well. There are different strengths to digital ambition of a country as a business and as a people. There are different arms to it. And for us, we see that once we are able to partner the developer community, we're giving them a base, a reach of their customer base so that they can also showcase their talent, showcase their work for an adoption of the customer base. And as well as we, the users of that app, it gives us the opportunity to be able to change our behavior with the new normal that we find ourselves in today, to be able to do things a lot more easier, much more faster and quicker, to be able to catch up with the developed worlds and our colleagues on the other side of the globe. The benefit is very huge. Today we have 1 million users of Ayoba, so primarily that means that if we're able to get micro apps, then you have an exposure of a developer to about 1 million customer base, and you can see the growth that we'll be envisaging from where we started off with 1 million and beyond. With regards to in terms of what due benefits, there are 3 key winners that we're looking at who will be rewarded with the prizes that we mentioned. The first prize winner takes home 20,000 Ghana cedis. The third prize winner takes home a prize of 8,000 Ghana cedis. The middle one takes a prize pack of, I think, about 10,000 Ghana cedis in that. And
we are awaiting the presentation of the mid-year budget by the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta. That's a live shot from Parliament for you. We'll go there as soon as he is ready to begin that presentation. Meantime, there is more news on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. Up next, some Olympic news on the sporting segment with Muftar.
Now let's do something on boxing, where promising Ghanaian boxer in the person of Wasiru Mohammed. He has been stripped of his belt as the WBO Global Super Bantamweight title holder because he's been inactive for the last 2 years. The last time he was in the ring was in January 2020 when he stopped John Amuzu of Benin in the 7th round. Here is President of the WBO Africa, that is Samiri Kaptan.
Today, Friday, if a boxer wins the title, we have a form to be filled that you have 120 days to defend the title. If you don't defend, then you'll be stripped. And I think all of you know, since Wasiru won the title, he hasn't defended both titles, the global and Africa. So he's been stripped. You know, I particularly heard about what is happening. You know, former it did happen, and present day, I heard it last 2 weeks. You know, but I've informed he said he's not the manager, you know, but I informed Mr. John Maffo about it. Well, it's not only this boxer, it's not only Wasiru that this has happened to so many boxers, not in Ghana alone, around Africa and around the world. This is our decision, the rules that we have. That if you win the title and you don't defend 120 days, and even if 120 days comes and you don't have a tangible answer, you know, to tell us, then that's that. But if you tell us maybe there's something wrong with you, maybe doctors report that you're not fit to defend at that 120 days, so they should give you more time. You have to apply so that we think about and give you more time, but nothing of sort came. He can get the second chance if his promoter applies with the new champion of his title. We can give him the chance because he's a good boxer.
Thank you very much, sir.
So he shouldn't relent.
Okay.
And he shouldn't be disturbed, you know, but only, you know, I've been saying this thing, you, the pressmen, are my witness, that discipline counts. In boxing, to get to the world, you need to be disciplined. You need to respect your managers because they are spending the money.
And that is Samiri Kaptan, president of WBO Africa, speaking about why Ghanaian boxer Wasiru Mohammed has been stripped of his title. On this note, we say thanks very much for joining us for Sports on Joy News today with me, Muftau Nabila Abda. We have more sports stories to share with you on myjoyonline.com/sports. Coming up next is international news.
Remember, State of Play comes off this afternoon at 2:30 p.m. on social media. Listen to the host, Evans Mentor.
If you followed in the last 1 week, the dominant trending issue in Ghana, and in fact, it's even gone global, has been the anti-gay bill. And it's just a right place to start a conversation today about an aspect of this whole thing that hasn't been explored at all. That is the whole concept behind State of Play, is to be as controversial as possible, taking on the taboo subjects and dealing with it head on. We sat down and teased it out. There are some people who are making their political careers on the back of this, and we have numbers to back this point. We're going to be making some very interesting revelations on it, and telling you which of the parties stand to lose the most out of this, and call out a few names. You actually want to join this, because this is going to be one of those very exciting but very controversial angles to this whole conversation. It is all about engagement with our audience directly, in real time and live. So what is going to happen is we just talk for 10 minutes. I mean, and again, it's a fair show where the journalists and the host talk less and the audiences do more. So we do only 10 minutes talk. And then the 20 minutes that is left is all about engaging with our audience. All your questions, all your banter, all your comments, and all your abuse. I mean, we got a few of those in the first show. So yeah, I mean, listen, it's welcome. Right. I mean, as we see on State of Play, you get the response you deserve.
All right, Evans, thank you very much. So at 2:30 p.m., you can join Evans, Winston, and Raymond on Facebook and on Twitter, of course. Up next is Showbiz with Mapito Sibidi.
It's time for Showbiz here on Joy News today with me, Mapito Sibidi. Now, on our first story, we're talking about the experience that is Joe Mitchell's new album, and he's been sharing his live recording experience with us.
It's all been live. The only difference is we've had studio live and then more or less like stage live or, you know, straight live sessions.
Okay.
But almost the whole album is live.
Why? Why is a live such a big deal for you?
You get to capture the whole atmosphere, and it's more like a collective grace in the room, if you, so to speak. So there are different people who all support, make it work the way it is. And we record it straight. So it's not like...
Wait, we don't rehearse before you?
No, definitely. But what I mean by that is everybody plays at the same time. Whereas when it's a studio recording, we do one after the other. Or sometimes, you know, so you're able to flow like you're ministering rather than recording.
Okay.
You know, so you capture that live atmosphere rather than being very careful and that kind of thing. So
you're more comfortable with this, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm more of a worship person, so doing it this way is easier for me, actually.
Have a good one, Max. Okay, up next is the marketplace. We're still standing by for Ken Opoyata to deliver the mid-year budget review, but that's it for Joy News today. For more news, log on to myjoyonline.com. Those are live scenes from Parliament, by the way. Minority Leader there and Deputy Minority Leader James Kluchabeji, Haruna Idrisu Minority Leader, speaking to Majority Leader Osechi Mensah Bonsu. Finance Minister Ken Opoyata is yet to come to the Chamber of the House. When he does, it will be live on this channel and on Joy Prime TV. My name is Daniel Dazi. Be safe. See you tomorrow.